Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Brainwashing is a method used for altering and taking control of one's thoughts through the use of manipulation, torture, and psychological techniques. According to HowStuffWorks.com, the term was first coined in the 50s during the Korean War when 21 United States prisoners were set free yet refused to go home, with their reason being that they wanted to live in the communist society they were just fighting against. Brainwashing is such a scary idea because it essentially means every move you make is being controlled by someone else without your knowledge. If you are brainwashing a single person and you have control over their living, eating, and sleeping patterns, then all you have to do is use a list of psychological techniques to get into the victim's head, and over the course of time, the victim will be brainwashed. To brainwash a nation is a completely different process, on a much larger scale. What is amazing about a brainwashed nation is that one person has control over millions of people, whereas when brainwashing a single person, a group of people has control over one person. So the question is how? How can one person manipulate millions of people without their knowledge? Many argue that it is impossible to brainwash a nation and the citizens only obey their countries because of fear. However, psychologists have theories that brainwashing a nation can be done. There are a few reoccurring points we noticed many psychologists have agreed are necessary for a nation to be brainwashed. So, we created a list of these points and turned it into a 4-step process. The first step that is necessary for a nation to be brainwashed is there needs to be a crisis that destroys the government. The crisis creates chaos and allows one person to rise from the ashes and take control of the government. The crisis also creates a common enemy which the nation will blame for all problems, as well as take the citizens' focus away from the government. The second step on the list is to have complete control over education and teach children from a young age to love and trust the government. The third step on the list is to imprison anyone who speaks out against the government, preventing all of the brainwashed citizens from being aware of the truth. The fourth and final step on the list is to normalize this new way of life and make the members of the new society feel as though their way of life is superior to any other way of life. This is done through propaganda and time. When this step is complete, the country is officially brainwashed. The entire process can take decades, but once it is finished, there is almost no way of turning back. A perfect example of proving a nation can be brainwashed is Nazi Germany, led by their dictator and infamous manipulation genius, Adolf Hitler.
Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889. Hitler grew up in Austria but would eventually move to Germany. There, he would fight in World War I. Hitler won 2 decorations for bravery. After Germany's defeat in World War I, Hitler would get involved in politics and eventually move his way up to become the leader of the Nazi Party. Hitler was very persuasive and a powerful public speaker. But how did he manage to convince German people into killing 6 million Jews? How did Hitler brainwash Germany? Hitler was able to rise to power and manipulate the society with the use of the Depression. In 1929, the Great Depression hit. This destroyed the German economy, leaving millions unemployed overnight. Hitler used these dark times to take advantage of the desperate Germans. After the loss of World War I, Germany was forced to pay large sums of money and shrink their army. People of Germany lost trust in their government and became pessimistic about their future. As History.com states, Hitler saw the chaos as his opportunity to seize power. He loudly criticized the ruling government and promised to return Germany to greatness. People in Germany finally thought they found their savior. Hitler was then appointed Chancellor, the head of the government. After being given this power, it would make it much easier to enforce his ideas on the depressed Germans. This shows how Hitler was able to easily rise to power and manipulate this society into thinking that he was a savior. Along with the using of the Depression in Germany, Hitler also knew how to get the people on his side. This was by blaming the Jews. Hitler convinced the people that the Jewish population were to blame for the loss of World War I. While Hitler had already gotten the German adults on his side, the most prominent way that Hitler brainwashed the German society was through the children. Hitler was able to convince the naive kids to stand with him and commit awful crimes. As ThoughtCo.com puts it, once the teaching staff was organized, so was what they taught. There were two main thrusts of the new teaching. To prepare the population to better fight and breed, physical education was given much more time in schools. While to better prepare the children to support the Nazi ideology, they were taught exaggerated German history and literature, outright lies in science, and German language and culture to form the Volk. Hitler took over the kids' education, persuading them to do whatever he wanted. This was the primary way Hitler brainwashed Germany. These kids would grow up their whole lives being taught Hitler's awful beliefs. Overall, Hitler was able to brainwash the people of Germany to kill millions by using the Depression and the economic fall, blaming the Jewish people, and by controlling the youth. The people of Germany were so manipulated, they participated in one of the biggest genocides in all of history. As DailyLifeABCClio.com describes, mobile killing squads have been at work murdering all Jews found within the areas of domination and control. The death camps were institutions designed to methodically and efficiently murder millions of people, specifically Jews. These mass murders took place in specially designed gas chambers, employing either carbon monoxide from diesel engines or crystallized hydrogen cyanide. It is insane to think that people could be fine with this happening, but because of the ways Hitler brainwashed the German society, these killings were overlooked.
Now let's look back at our checklist and see if Nazi Germany hit all of the checkpoints. 1. They appeared after the Depression as a result of World War I. This made the Jews the enemy of the country. 2. They created Hitler Youth and took control over the minds of young children. 3. They imprisoned anyone who spoke against the Nazis. 4. They were in power for 12 years up until they lost World War II. However, with this being said, it still doesn't prove if a nation can be brainwashed today. Yes, everything on the checklist was followed, but this was in 1933. Cell phones wouldn't exist for another 40 years and most homes didn't have televisions. We need to dig deeper and really see if it's possible for a country such as the United States to get brainwashed in the future. The only way that we can do this is if we look at a brainwashed country right now, and that would be North Korea.
Many people are unaware of just how secluded and cut off the nation of North Korea is. As you may probably know already, this is the extreme communist country with Kim Jong-un as the supreme leader. In fact, many of you have probably seen the Seth Rogen and James Franco comedy movie, The Interview, which makes fun of North Korea and its ideology. Despite the movie's depictions of the country, there is just so much more happening behind the curtains that Kim Jong-un hangs over the country. This isolation results in a form of brainwashing used by the North Korean government. Kim Il-sung first took power after becoming chairman of the People's Committee of North Korea. In 1948, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea was founded with Kim Il-sung as the premier or leader. After he took power, he led the North Korean army against South Korea in the Korean War. He then gained affection and support from the citizens after resisting the UN forces against them. From then on, he slowly forced the country into a blind state, taking every advantage he could over the government and the people. After he was instilled as a supreme leader, the brainwashing of the country began from the time children could talk. They are taught about the false greatness of the Kim family that has been ruling them since Kim Il-sung in 1948. They do not have time to develop their own opinions on politics. Instead, they are force-fed propaganda about the Kims, which they have no other choice but to accept as the truth. Everywhere you go in North Korea, there are large pictures, posters, and billboards of the Kim family standing tall over organized armies or mounds of food. After seeing these images all their lives, they become ingrained in the minds of every citizen and it becomes their reality. They have portrayed Kim Il-sung, his son, and current Kim Jong-un as godlike figures that are the best rulers to ever exist. The North Korean government have also cut off almost all ties with the outside world's media outlets. No information can go in or out without very strict supervision of the North Korean government. This keeps the citizens blind from what is really happening. Since the government has total control of everything, the TV might only air pieces of propaganda of Kim Jong-un welcoming large soldiers instead of airing news about the famine in the country. This satisfies the citizens because they do not know otherwise, since this is the only information available to them. This is emphasized by the fact that North Korea has experienced some of the worst famines ever, yet they still have fierce passion and belief that the Kims are the best rulers to ever exist. To the people who have realized what they are truly living in, there is an alternate form of brainwashing for them. There are numerous labor imprisonment camps located throughout the country which have some of the worst degrading living conditions in the world. The people fear these camps to such a great extent that they will never voice their opinions about the Korean government if they have any real thought in the first place. For these types of people, they brainwash themselves slowly over time to think that the North Korean government is actually great because they need to do this to survive. This type of brainwashing works well on themselves because once they realize what type of society they are actually in, their self-esteem gets really low, and this is the type of mind that is easiest to brainwash. Therefore, the self-convincing works in the next few weeks or months, and soon they become like every other robot living there. To the others that try to escape the country or voice their opinions and get caught, they are put into these horrific camps. In these camps, more traditional forms of brainwashing, such as those seen in George Orwell's 1984, are used on the prisoners. They are beat, degraded, and disregarded as a human being for weeks, months, or usually years. This causes the prisoners to become very vulnerable, and they are more prone to accept easier solutions through brainwashing. The prison officers then reteach the prisoners about Korean culture as a literal form of brainwashing and completely mess with their minds. Once the easier solution of accepting the Kim regime is offered, the prisoner will take it right away and truly believe it to escape the nightmares of the camps. In summary, the Korean government has total control over the media, entertainment, government, judicial system, education, and every other aspect of life, which makes it easy to brainwash its people, and they clearly demonstrate this with ease.
Now let's see how North Korea did with the checklist. 1. They had the Korean War that started the Kim Jong era and made the United States their national enemies. 2. They have full control over the children's education whom are fed propaganda. 3. They imprison anyone that says one negative word towards the government. 4. They have been a dictatorship for more than 60 years and unfortunately show no signs of stopping. Now it must be true. The checklist checks out on a modern civilization. So, it is possible to brainwash a nation, right? Well, we are still missing one piece. This is the problem we ran into before, and that is fear. What if the Koreans are only partially brainwashed? What if they don't know whether they actually love their country or if they're just afraid to be put in prison? Lisa Ling said in her documentary, Inside Undercover in North Korea, that there may not be a difference between true belief and true fear. And maybe she was right. Maybe there's no difference between actually loving your country and being forced to love it, because the outcome is the same. In the end, you are forced to love something whether you are aware or not. And that becomes your reality.